There's a drive way back. It might be. It could be. It is. Holy cow. Welcome to another broadcast of Bricks Behind the Ivy.
Hey, Cub fans, welcome to another episode of Bricks Behind the Ivy. Thank you so much to our awesome sponsors, Wrigleyville Sports, the best sports store in Wrigleyville, and Yaggy Road Roasting Company, based in Valparaiso, Indiana, serving cups of coffee just as special as the moments you drink them in. Here's your host, Jeff CandidCubs, Ragauskis and Pat Eriksen.
Welcome, Brickheads, to another episode of Bricks Behind the Ivy, a Cubs podcast for Cub fans by Cub fans. I am Jeff CandidCubs Ragauskis from Bricks Behind the Ivy / Cubs Insider, and joining me today is my co-host, Mr. Pat Eriksen from Wrigley Fire Bar and Grill. Pat, how are you today?
Doing good, buddy. Doing good. Things are looking up on the north side a little bit and getting excited. It's great to see baseball back and great to catch up with you. So I say, hey, let's get her started.
Yeah, I think it's there's real positive momentum, positive vibes, as a lot of folks like to say. No free ads to the other podcasts out there. But yeah, it's been, I think, since the like little soiree out into Tokyo and Japan, the Cubs have looked pretty good. You take those 2 games away, they're a 7-3 club. They're still sitting in first place, which we'll get to our standings update here in a little bit. But they've looked pretty good so far to start the year. And it's been nice, to have baseball back to talk about, because, I think on Friday there was another article over at The Athletic talking about ownership and Jed Hoyer and Tom Ricketts. And I don't know about you, but I'm so tired about talking about money with this team. I just kind of want to talk about baseball.
I don't know about you, but you were talking about this the other day and with my friends, and Tom Ricketts, and this is going to be dating back to some of you older sports fans. Tom Ricketts is reminding me of the 90s and Dollar Bill Wirtz over at the Madhouse on Madison. Because that's what he was known for the Blackhawks back then, and that's why they gave him the nickname Dollar Bill. And now, fast forward to current times, and you got Tom Ricketts, who's only worried about breaking even. So I don't know what's going on. It's like, you know what? If you do whatever you got to do back there, let's worry about the product on the field. Let's make it to where, hey, we do a deep run in September and October, and then they can make all the extra coin that they want to.
Exactly. It's I want the team to do the talking now. I don't want to be thinking about this thing. And like Sahadov and Patrick had a really good podcast, which I suggest you listen to, over at Northside Territory, discussing it, which I think, to me, like, I received a little bit better than the article. I hated the timing of the article on opening day at Wrigley and seeing this thing in the morning and just kind of like taking the buzz out of, my excitement for the first game back at the Federal Landmark. But I think you should go check out that podcast if you haven't, because they talked about kind of, some of the nuance. And the Cubs front office was, frustrated seeing some of these things and the statistics out there. But I mean, they exist, and it's part of how we as fans have digested this information. And, you see Kyle Tucker brought in here, and you've seen all these young players getting extensions on other teams that supposedly have way less money than we do. And this morning, the announcement, we're recording this on Monday morning, of Vlad Guerrero, another guy that's not making the free agent market, getting $500 million over 14. That's, like, when you get a guy like Kyle Tucker, you have to do something to keep him, because it seems less and less likely these players are making the open market. So figure it out. Today is a great day, as I've been tweeting every day, for the Chicago Cubs to extend Kyle Tucker. And he's been everything as advertised. So
he actually has been, and that's what we need to start doing, is we need to really just start focusing on the field. We got to start focusing in on and we're going to get in all to it, folks, so stay tuned, but all the positives, the negatives, the holes that we might have within the roster, within the lineup, possibly, etc. But you know what? I don't know about you, but I woke up Friday morning and put the old Cubs flag outside, and it was awesome to just turn it on, to hear Pat Hughes and Ron, and all those guys, and to see the ballpark out there, and to go on social media and see our good friend Sam taking photos outside of the ballpark, seeing all the fans out there, Captain Cubbo, etc. And we've got to remain positive. We are off to a great start. Okay. And there's been a lot of negatives. I mean, you go to all the millions of, social media pages about the Cubs, and, there's the negative Nancy's and the Debbie Downers that are out there already. But you know what? Hope springs eternal, and we got to remain positive. We got to also realize it's a twofold thing. It's only April, but in a lot of times, April and May could win you divisions. So we just got to have our nose to the grindstone, but for the good, just enjoy it. All right. We had to deal with a horrible Blackhawks season. I don't know what the Bulls are doing. You had the Bears giving you all hope and just flushing that down the toilet. It's the spring. We won't talk about the South Side. Oh boy. But you know what? Let's just have some fun with it. And that's what we're going to talk about here today.
Yeah. And I think that's the Cubs have an opportunity to kind of capture a city hungry for a winner. That's just, there has not been a lot of winning in Chicago. I have some hope for the Bears, and we talked about this in the offseason and our season preview. This is an opportunity for this Cubs team to really just cement themselves as the thing to do this summer. So let's do the thing. Let's win some ball games.
Absolutely.
I think that's a perfect transition to everybody's favorite segment, I hope. Over at Bricks Behind the Ivy, the box score blitz, where we get 60 seconds to go over the last week of games. And the box score blitz is brought to you by Yaggy Road Roasting Company. Why not have the coffee you drink be just as special as the moments you drink them in? Thank you to everyone over at Yaggy Road. Make sure you are ordering coffee from them in the link in the description of this podcast. So many great things coming with them. Caught up with them last week. Very excited for another year of Yaggy Road Roasting. Go Beacons, owned by 3 Valpo alum. I am a Valpo alum, not a regular tournament participant as much as they were when I was a student, but still my heart lies in Valpo. Met my wife at Valpo, but great coffee. Order it today and support small business. But here we go. Box score blitz in 3, 2, 1, go. Welcome to another edition of Box Score Blitz, getting all of your scores in 60 seconds or less from the last week. First series of the week, 3 games in Sacktown as the Athletics owner stinks and moved baseball out of Oakland. The Cubs dominate to a 3-game sweep in Game 1, 18-3, Game 2, 7-4, and Game 3, 10-2, outscoring the A's 35-9, which they now historically average 12 runs per game in Sacramento. Small sample size alert. Carson Kelly hits the first cycle since Mark Grace in 1993 on Monday. Welcome back to the Federal Landmark, folks. It's opening day at Wrigley Field. Welcome to the Daddios, or the Padres. And undefeated no more. Cubs take 2 out of 3, 3-1 on Game 1, 7-1 in Game 2, but lose a heartbreaker on Sunday, 8-7, capping off a 5-1 week as the Cubs sit at first place. And that is your box score blitz, brought to you by Yaggy Road Roasting Company. All right, so Cubs were 5-1 this week. That one being yesterday's tough one to swallow, a back and forth game, doing bullpen things. I know a lot of folks like to focus on that, but yeah, it feels like the last 2 Sundays have not been the funnest Sundays, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But we're going to do our NL Central standings update here on Monday, April 7th. We got the Cubbies on top at 7-5. The Milwaukee Brewers.
Does that look sexy or what? I love
exactly. It. Milwaukee Brewers right behind them at 500, 5-5. St. Louis Cardinals, who started hot, are now back to 4-5. Cincinnati Reds are off to a tougher start than I expected for them. They're 3-7. Still got some demons out in Milwaukee, as my friend and podcast correspondent, Mr. Andy Evans, says that's been a hellhole for them recently. And the Pittsburgh Pirates, who probably should get a new ownership group, continue to struggle at 3-7 at the bottom of the division. But yeah, it's nice to see, we're only, 12 games in for the Cubs, 10 games in for some of the rest of this division. And, seeing the Cubs on top is a nice start to the year.
It is, and If they just need to keep this momentum, there's been so many people, and I know, Jeff, you and I have even talked about it. If we can get out of this month based upon the schedule that we're facing, we can get out of this month 500, maybe even a tiny bit above 500. That's a win in my book. And I mean, you had 2 left undefeated teams. You had San Diego and the dreaded Dodgers. And the Dodgers are still on a tear. But, over the weekend, we took care of San Diego. We should have swept. We will get into that a little bit. But, that's what we've got to start doing. And looking at this, I mean, it's early. I get it. Okay. But, it looks pretty good when you compare it to the rest of the division. The Brewers are finally starting to pick up scrappy wins here and there. I actually went up to enemy territory and checked out opening day. And I'm telling you what, Jeff, you, me, and maybe a few of your Valparaiso friends can get together and probably have a bullpen way better than what's going on in Milwaukee. Not only that, I mean, it's a mash unit up there. There's so many guys that are hurt. So that's why you need to capitalize when these teams are down. And now is the time. I don't care what the date is. If you've got rosters depleted from injuries, rosters that are hitting major skids like Cincinnati, which I too am pretty shocked at. But we've got to pounce on it now, and that's what the Cubbies are doing.
Yeah, and I think, we've talked about, as this month being very difficult, as you said, and it's not getting any easier as, we'll take a look ahead after our player of the week, pitcher and hitter of the week. But yeah, this is a gauntlet. This is the toughest. Yeah. The Cubs will finish this month and not see the contenders in the NL West for the rest of the year unless it's in the playoffs. When April ends, we don't see the Dodgers or the Padres the rest of the year. That's crazy. Yeah, that's insane. That is a really tough start to the year. And looking at that NL West, if you are a big baseball fan and hop around looking at the standings, they have had just an intensely hot start. The Padres are in 3rd place in that division right now at 8-2. The Dodgers are 9-2, and the Giants are 8-1. It's a really, really hot start for that group. And the Giants, surprising some folks. They've got some really good pitching out there, and a big Logan Webb guy. Love watching that guy pitch. He's a really dirty changeup. Yeah, that's just and they've got a lot of money to spend and haven't really landed the big aircraft carrier, as he would say. So another reason to really put a good foot forward if you can with Kyle Tucker, because there's a team out west that is hungry to compete with the Dodgers and has money to spend. They make a lot of money out there in San Francisco. So
yes, they do.
So without any further ado, after 5-1 week, let's talk the Wrigleyville Sports Players of the Week. Wrigleyville Sports has been a Cubs cornerstone since 1990.
Love those guys.
The best Cubs merch in Wrigleyville. Come to check them out today. They are an official sponsor of Bricks Behind the Ivy and the sponsor of the Player and Pitcher of the Week segment. Thank you, Wrigleyville Sports, for all you do. A new discount code coming very soon, as I just talked with them. So
is that a teaser?
It is a teaser. Yeah, that's a teaser. So come check that out. And Cub fans, you're gonna love it. We've arranged something really nice for you Cub fans to get some discounts on jerseys and stuff. And there's gonna be some cool segments and giveaways we're gonna do with them this year. Very excited about it. Love the family over at Wrigleyville Sports. Another small business close to my heart is Wrigleyville Sports is where I've bought probably 80% of the jerseys, hats, and stuff you see in this background. So give them your support. Use the link in the bio, or wait for that awesome discount code that is coming soon. So, Pat, you have the hitter of the week. Who is?
Let's fire this up, kids. Come on now. We got the siren blazing. Now, when Jeff was having me take a look and see what our hitters of the week are doing, there's a few nods. It's good to see Nico Horner back hitting and doing his thing, coming back from that injury. Ian Happ's off to a great start. Played his 1,000th game the other day. He's been hitting the cover off the ball and coming through in very clutch situations. But I think what you need to do here, folks, is you need to think royalty, and you need to think all hail King Tuck. I think we're going to have to talk about old Kyle Tucker. He is the first time in a long time that we've seen when we've signed a big player and has come through immediately. I was just pulling something out here. His first Cubs, he's the first Cub player with 11 hits, 11 runs, 11 walks, and 11 RBIs in the team's first 11 games since Roger Hornsby in 1929.
Jeez.
I'd say that's a pretty damn good start.
Yeah, it's good company.
He's coming through in the clutch. And it's not just the hitting. It's, the fielding that he's been doing out there. And to go back to the hitting, because he has been so red hot, other players, namely Seiya Suzuki, have been benefiting from it because they're pitching around him to get to other players. And even Seiya's off to a pretty decent start that he didn't have in 2024. So I give the old tip of the hat to Kyle Tucker. I think he's going to be our BBTI hitter of the week. Jeff, I understand that you've been looking at the arms. And besides yesterday, we don't know if we're going to talk about that one, but besides yesterday, we've had some pretty good pitching performances. But I'm curious, who do you got for the BBTI pitcher of the week?
Well, it's not much of a surprise here. I think it based on his opening day performance, and he was a regular as the BBTI pitcher of the week last year. Won 15 games last year. Has been known as Mike by some. He is one of the funnest guys on this team that includes PCA. So I'm going to say the BBTI pitcher of the week is once again Shota Mike Imanaga. He had 13 whiffs in his start while holding the Padres to nearly a 223 expected batting average. He pitched the deepest he's ever pitched in the game. He got an out in the 8th inning, 7.1 innings pitched in that start. He looked great. He just seems to really thrive and understand how to pitch in a cold Wrigley Field environment. The Cubs did a lot of small ball things really well, and it has been just really nice to see that, Craig Counsell talked about this offseason, and a lot of folks have talked about this. Shota Imanaga repeating his 2024 campaign would be extremely difficult. But here we are sitting like a few starts in. And yes, it's only a few starts in, and he could normalize pretty significantly. And he's a sub-1 ERA, just like he was in April last year. He's walking a few more guys than he was. It took a while for him to get his first walk. It took several starts before he had his first walk last year. But the guy has just not missed a beat. He seems to be a real competitor. He's obviously a little different than, your standard rookie, because last year was his MLB rookie season. But yeah, he has really just kind of, I feel like, established himself nearly. The stuff isn't what you would say is ace level, but like just the way he handles a game, he's ace level. And he is the BBTI pitcher of the week. What do you guys think? Do you think someone else is more deserving of pitcher or hitter of the week? Let us know in the comments. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button and commenting. If you are listening on our podcast platform, make sure you're giving us a 5-star review and writing a review to help BBTI grow. So let's take a look at the week ahead next. But let's first kind of talk about some things that went on this week. I don't think I want to harp. Last week we talked about Ryan Pressly in his first, blown save or, tougher situation, and people kind of immediately calling for, as he's been dubbed in some channels, Stressly, to be removed from the closer position. And, I think that there is visually some arguments that it's not necessarily the best in some situations for him to be the guy coming into the 9th. But I also feel, and Sahav Sharma and Patrick Mooney mentioned this recently on one of their podcasts, so I'm not going to pretend this is original thought, but they said it's in 2025, there's not going to be this grand announcement of Ryan Pressly is no longer the closer of the Chicago Cubs. But they do think that there will be a point where they're just going to play matchups depending on who's who's in a certain situation. Pressly might get the 8th because maybe they're going to try to get him going with some easier batters, so they have the strikeout stuff with Hodge and the 9th and vice versa. So I feel like we potentially could see that sooner rather than later, but there's not going to be this celebratory Cub fan moment of him being officially announced as no longer being the closer in the Cubs. But let's bury the Pressly stuff and let's talk about walks. That has been a huge concern early on from the bullpen, as both games that they have lost, the Cubs started several innings with their bullpen walking the leadoff guy. What are you seeing, Pat? What is your frustration with that strategy?
Here's the thing, and this is, again, I'm making all these comments from the cheap seats. So, but there's a few things that I'm seeing. One, they're trying to get too fancy. They're trying to paint the corners. They're trying to, they're not overpowering. There's no heat. There's no nothing like that. I definitely don't think it's the catching core. I think the Cubs have got a great catching core, and they are calling great games. I think there's that. I also think that whether I'm not going to start sounding like 2024 where a lot of the hitting was down because of the Wrigleyville weather, but let's be brutally honest. You may have even the slightest difficulties in gripping the baseball when it is this cold. Thank goodness we haven't had any rain or the snow they had out in Colorado. So there's that. And what these guys got to start doing, and it's something that I used to preach when I coached my son in Little League. When you're on the mound, you got to trust the players behind you. And it's almost like they're trying to get too fancy, too finesse, and they're trying to get them to swing at bad pitches, etc. And they're not looking because they want, maybe it's the big moment. I don't know. But what I'm seeing, though, is, hey, ground balls are just as sexy as a strikeout. Okay. And that's what they've got to start doing. There is going to be changes throughout this bullpen throughout the whole year. It's going to be a chess game for 162 for Counsell. And now based upon yesterday, who knows if Ben Brown's going to eventually maybe end up in the bullpen as a longer reliever and Jordan Wicks gets that fifth spot. I don't know, but that's what I'm kind of seeing, again, from the cheap seats. Jeff, what about you?
Yeah, I think my concern in general is, like you said, and kind of what we talked about, danced around earlier in the episode. Like, this is not a bullpen that's built with a ton of swing and miss stuff. In general, This is not a pitching staff that's built with a lot of swing and miss stuff. Yeah. So much like a lot of folks talked about, there's a lot of things that this team is designed on the margins. So then the margin for error diminishes significantly. So let's use a visual or a mental visual example. When you have Presley struggling in the top of the ninth in yesterday's game, and then you have Suarez come in for the Padres, dotting 199 and basically just exclusively throwing his fastball. There was just a different comfort level of how that game was going to end for the Padres. And, you don't have to be this finite, like hitting your spots in different sections. If you've got this high end swing and miss type stuff with a good chase rate. And if Ryan Presley is always trying to establish the slider, and because his fastball is not elite velocity, but if he's not locating with his fastball, then they're going to sit on the slider because they know that there aren't a lot of strikes coming. So that's what we've seen a lot early in this year. There's a lot of research that's been done about leadoff walks because people want to know how bad they are. And, in 2017, 39.9% of leadoff walks ended up scoring. 2018, 41.7, 2019, 41.3. So, the Cubs are playing with really bad odds. That is not a recipe for success. No. And, there's some situations too where, I sit and look at it and, especially when they're down the count, I'm like, you know what, based on what we know about batting average of balls in play, some of the defenders the Cubs have, literally just throw the damn ball over the plate. Right. And if they hit it, maybe it's going to be a home run. Yes, maybe. But people don't hit home runs on pitches they're expecting all the time. No. Maybe they hit it super hard into the ground and you're getting an out. But giving up and just trying to paint a corner or not being able to find the zone, that has been the story early on with a lot of these guys. Just a lot of walks. And that's just not acceptable. And I really do think it is, kind of a situation in which this team just is struggling to find swing and miss stuff. The good news is that, there is potential help on the way. There's, Luke Little, who has got good strikeout stuff, but has struggled with command. Daniel Palencia's got elite velocity down in Iowa as well, but has struggled with command. So it seems like what Tommy Hotovy and, maybe Tyler Zombro, who's, the new pitching assistant, needs to figure out in the next few weeks is which one of these guys they can adjust to make sure they're throwing more strikes. Because, the Cubs in this stretch, it's tough to sit here and go, everybody calm down. We're 12 games in. the 2 games that they lost, like, you're going to lose baseball games. Even the Dodgers had a ton of blown saves last year.
Right.
Like, that's like, don't overreact. But it is tough when the last 2 seasons have been derailed by an inept bullpen, especially one that basically fell apart in May 2 years in a row.
Yep.
And it's hard to sit here and tell Cub fans, don't hit the panic button. I don't think personally, if we're not the podcast for you, if you're going to look for the sky is falling, it's like, but like but at the same time, like it's such a small sample size, and these guys are going to throw 70 innings, and these are 0.2, 0.3, or 0.2 or 1 innings pitch for these guys. They could find their stuff and be fine the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Tyson Miller is a great example of that. He was terrible and DFA'd by his prior team, and he changed the Cubs bullpen dynamically last year and became a strikeout guy, and he's currently hurt. So like, him coming back could be a huge help. But
yeah,
you gotta stop with the walks. You just gotta stop. And I think that, especially being a contact oriented pitching staff, you can't give them free runners and then expect every ball that gets hit in the play then be producing outs as well. It's just, that is a recipe for disaster.
Well, and how many Gold Glovers do they have behind them? That's another thing. Trust the team. And the other thing is and again, I'm not trying to sound like Tom Skilling and constantly talking about the weather, but it's April. Throw the stuff. Hey, here's my pitch. Go ahead and hit it. And it's April, and that wind is howling off the lake. Good luck getting homer after homer after homer. Now, thank goodness we have been successful with it, but good luck knocking them out of the ballpark in April. Now if it's June, July, the weather's heating up and everything else like that, okay, I get it. But the flip side to that is that's when it gets warmer. It gets easier on pitchers. The grip on the baseball is better. The shoulders are better. Pitchers can, dependent on a lot of things, can go deeper into games than they can, in this day and age in this month. So yeah, I agree with you. You don't need to consistently put yourself behind the 8 ball inning after inning, day after day, and expect to have success. We've been lucky thus far, but I'm telling you, in a 162 game marathon, you cannot keep doing that.
No, exactly. And, the Cubs are currently 6th in baseball in walk per 9 rate. In the bad way, not 6th best, 6th worst. Right. But I mean, to bring comfort to folks, the Padres and the Dodgers are 1 and 3 respectively, as the worst walk rate. But the biggest difference, and this is, back to my point about balls in play for the staff, is that the Padres and the Dodgers both have 10 and 9 Ks per 9 ratings, respectively, where the Cubs are only getting 7 strikeouts per 9. Mm-hmm. So they have a larger margin for error for walks because they have a guy that can strike someone out. Yep. Cubs so far have not been striking people out and walking folks. So something to continue to monitor, not raising the alarm bells, but something that I definitely have noticed. And I think that's a good transition point to set up the next week of baseball. The Cubs have one more group of games here at the Friendly Confines starting tonight versus the Texas Rangers, who are currently 8-2. They've been off to a really good start. They have pretty solid pitching. They have a really interesting offense. This is just another set of games for the Cubs in which they are, kind of running through the gauntlet. And that just, it's tough. They have a tough schedule. And you've talked about that before. The Cubs have Justin Steele going tonight versus Nathan Eovaldi. Nathan Eovaldi, he's been a free agent a few times and has signed, very lucrative 1-year deals and has a pretty good strikeout rate. It's going to be an interesting matchup for the Cubs. Justin Steele has, the back end of his last start versus the Athletics looked a lot better than his previous 2 starts in the front end of that Athletic start. But he has not looked like himself yet. To me, one of the more important things with Justin Steele really is just, I'd rather him be healthy because last year he did miss a ton of time getting hurt early in the year. So I'd rather him ramp up and stay healthy. And, we experience some adjustments than him being fully ready and get injured. So maybe this is a process. Hopefully, tonight, which it's not very warm in Chicago, he will be able to take advantage of some warmer weather. But yeah, with 3-game series starting tonight, the remaining matchups for the week.
We have to talk about the remaining. Oh,
so, we're not going to talk a ton of probable starters, for this series, but the Cubs do have another off day on Thursday, which is
they're going to need it.
The good news. But we go to finish off the Dodgers this weekend. Yep. Yes, the Dodgers. We will see them 3 more. Actually, no, I'm sorry. We don't finish them off. We see them 3 more times, and then they come back to Wrigley very, very shortly. But the Cubs are doing a little bit of a West Coast stretch, which, I think there's some opportunity for some Bricks Behind the Ivy watch-alongs because West Coast games are my favorite because my kids are asleep. So, but yeah, they have 3 games versus the Dodgers, all late games, and Sunday Night Baseball in Dodger Stadium on Sunday on ESPN. But yeah, tough week for the Cubs, and they've got the top end of the rotation going. They'll have Steele, Tyone, and Imanaga versus the Rangers this week, but then we'll have Boyd and Ben Brown and Steele the back end of this week. Hoping Ben Brown can find something because the early returns have not been great for Brown.
No, I tell you what though, just a quick second, Jeff. I wanted to get your take on what do you think of Matthew Boyd? How about that? He has been lights out so far.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I've been super critical of that signing, just because of my concern of his lack of innings pitched in the last 2 years. Right. You take the average of his last 2 seasons, and that's only 55 innings per season he's been able to do because of injuries. But early on, he's have 11 innings pitched, 10 strikeouts. His chase rate early is, in the 84th percentile, 35.5%. He's looked really, really good. And that changeup has been great. And I think, the concern with him is health. But he's really done a great job so far, and I really just want him to stay healthy and to be able to pitch as much as he can. But it's really looked like a nice signing for the Cubs.
Heck yeah, absolutely. Wow.
All right, so I think that's a good place to leave it as we head into week 2. Pat, any final thoughts, concerns, or?
Well, let's see here. It's like deep thoughts. As far as what I've seen so far, been pretty excited. Love to see what the Cubs have been doing. It looks like that they. As far as the lineup is concerned, I'm loving the production top to bottom. In addition to Michael Boyd, another pleasant surprise for me has been Carson Kelly and what he's been doing. So I'm loving to see what the bullpen's doing. Pitching staff, I think, and again, this is just me being optimistic, I think we're going to be all right. I think in my mind, and I'm sure that if it come tomorrow morning, if this doesn't happen, my friends and everybody else are going to light me up like a Christmas tree. But I have a feeling Steele's going to have a great outing tonight. I think he's going to start slowly bouncing back. And we got to just continue to remember this, folks. Yes, divisions are won or lost in April and May. That's been said. Any news media outlet that you've heard, any sports radio or television show, but it's a 162-game marathon. And just enjoy it. Just hop on the roller coaster and enjoy the ride. Get out to the ballpark. You got, this week you got 2 night games and an afternoon affair on Wednesday against Texas. But you know what? We're going to be coming back into April. Then you're looking at, all different kinds of, we got the White Sox coming here in about a month up to the north side. So there's going to be a lot of good baseball out at the 1060 West Addison. Just enjoy it. Keep an eye on it and subscribe to Bricks Behind the Ivy to get all of your Cubs information, baseball needs. Keep an eye out for that discount code. It's coming for Wrigleyville Sports. And just have fun. I know Harry's having fun. He's over there in the corner. He's already looking at the box scores for yesterday's games. Harry, slow down.
I think one last thing I do want to bring up is, I tweeted this the other day. This team has a different fun factor so far that I think has been missing the last 2 years. And I'm not saying that they weren't fun, but there's definitely like PCA brings a lot of energy. Shodi Managa is a lot of fun. Like watching Kyle Tucker's at bats are great. Dansby Swanson, like post core surgery, is a completely different player offensively, and that has been really nice to see. Then, yeah, just watching Dansby getting that tag out in Arizona and getting fired up. I don't feel like we see a ton of emotion from him. He's pretty steady Eddie. That was great to see, like them running and beating out double plays at second base and then subsequently scoring runs. Like they said they were focusing on base running this offseason. The early returns have been great. They look like they're playing really hard. I don't feel like that there's, anyone on this team that isn't like giving 1,000% a lot of the time, which I feel like, visually there has been, especially last year, it just did not seem like there was this energy. But early on, there is a different energy with this group. They're a lot more fun to watch, even when they're having a frustrating loss. Like this team is fun. They have a fun factor. And I personally have been enjoying watching the games again, which is really, really been nice, as sometimes the outside noise of baseball has not been as fun lately. So it is definitely nice.
By being a Sox fan.
Yes, exactly. And there's one last stat for everybody. Cubs are third in baseball with 16 stolen bases, have only been caught once thus far. So that's pretty good to see.
Good early returns.
350 on base percentage. Like to see a little bit more slug from this team, but they've been playing some top end teams. So a 426 slugging percentage and nearly 776 OPS for as a team versus the teams they've been playing. Like I'll take it. I think that's a really good start for this group. And I think there are still some guys on this offense that will find a level that like will continue to rise this group. And the more people who see Kyle Tucker and his approach, the better the rest of this offense is going to be. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you again for listening to another episode of Bricks Behind the Ivy, a Cubs podcast for Cub fans by Cub fans. This has been your weekly dose of Cubs baseball. If you like what you hear, make sure you hit that subscribe button on the podcast networks that you use and review to help spread Bricks Behind the Ivy. If you have not watched on YouTube, watch on YouTube. Go to the Bleacher Bunch Network YouTube page, hit that subscribe button, and leave some comments. Also, we're giving away 2 Cub tickets if we get to 1,000 subscribers on the Bleacher Bunch.
Spread the word, folks. Spread the word.
All you have to do is make comments under different episodes with hashtag Brickhead and subscribe to the channel. If we get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the month, we will pick a random winner with the hashtag Brickhead, and they will get 2 free Cub tickets to a game of their choice brought to you by Bricks Behind the Ivy. So make sure you're doing that today. Thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Go Cubs.
Go Cubbies!